everyone. My name is Nola Wanta. I am the senior judge for today's session and really looking forward to meeting all of you. So I think we should start with some introduction. We'll go with our judges first, and then we'll have our team introduce themselves. And then before you guys get started, I just need to just read something out as a reminder for everyone. So for our judges, let's go ahead and start. Well, Chris, I see you're unmuted. So let's start with Chris with an intro.
Hi, guys. My name's Chris Ebbett, and I am the Senior Vice President of Programming for a radio company called Odyssey Media. And I don't know where you guys are from, but in Los Angeles, we own radio stations like K-Rock and KNX News and K-Earth and The Wave. And we also have an LGBTQ plus station that we run called Channel Q that we run out of here. We are in all the major markets: New York, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, Dallas, Houston, Philadelphia, Miami, Boston. In addition to what I do here locally, I oversee a format of radio stations across the country in many of those same markets I just mentioned. My background is I got introduced in this. I was an LMU grad in 1991, and I have, in addition, I've programmed radio stations and held management positions in communications in Los Angeles, Tampa, Phoenix, and Toronto as well. So, and I have an interest in the NIL subject because I have a young son who is involved in this. So it piqued my interest immediately.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. Lynn, please.
Hi, I'm Lynn Johnson, and professionally, I am an insurance broker. Spend a lot of my time on compliance matters. The financial world has become more and more compliance oriented. I'm not an attorney, but I talk to attorneys probably every day. And I'm a big sports fanatic. Can't wait for the game tonight. Yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lynn. I think those are my two judges on here. So I am going to go ahead and let the team members introduce themselves, just who you are and so forth. And please, we'll start with Parth.
How are you?
Good.
My name is Paul, and I'm a sustainability C of DJP Consulting. And I'm here to represent NIL and NCAA and how the legal or ethical implications and the involvement of NIL and NCAA can affect the future of the framework.
Great, great. Lavasas and Christian, please.
So my name is Christian Kai, and I'm working with DJP Consulting.
Okay. Lavasas, perhaps? Yes.
Hello. Yes, my name is Daphne Lavasas, and I am here working in DJP Consulting, and I serve as the general counsel and the CFO.
Fantastic.
Very
Awesome.
Eager to present this with my colleagues because we're very excited about this presentation. And it seems like everyone's very interested in this subject, so that really makes us happy.
Wonderful, wonderful. So just before we get started, just a few things, just to follow, just the following comments. So so we're gonna almost get started, but in this part of the competition, just as a reminder for everyone, our students are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. So at some point, you got to tell us who we are, who we are, and why we should listen to you. So please make sure, so we know who you guys are and what you're representing. We've got a general counsel, I believe we have the CEO, and Christian, perhaps you can reorient us to your position. So just please make sure that everyone knows who you are and who they are before we begin, which you kind of did. So you will have, our students will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. So again, it's legal, financial, and ethical dimensions that we will be looking at. So during this time, teams or you guys are not going to be interrupted. It's likely, I think the judges can have their videos on. Some of us may turn it off to give you more focus. So again, the teams will present uninterrupted. Then when you are finished, the judges, we will ask you questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both you, the students, and the judges will all stay in character. So again, before you get started, just let us know who we are and who you're presenting to so we can get into character as the judges. So after the Q&A, we, the judges, will give you feedback outside of the role we're playing. So then we'll put on our normal people hat, and then we'll just have a conversation thereafter. But we will stay in our fictional roles during your presentation. So with that, I'd like to know from the team, perhaps Parth or Daphne and Christian, what is the judges' roles? Are we investors? Are we, who are we?
So you are the NCAA.
Okay.
I wouldn't say you have strictly a particular role in the NCAA, but you are the NCAA. It's kind of general.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, we're pitching on how to make the NCAA as an organization more, as you mentioned, the three pillars: ethically, legally, and financially more sustainable on all counts, and subsequently all around more sustainable.
Fantastic. Okay, that sounds great. So with that, if the judges are good, we'll go ahead and get started with their presentation. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to go on mute, and you guys are welcome to share screen and so forth and share your presentation. Thank you.
All right, so hello everyone. We are DJP Consulting, and we are presenting on the NCAA and how to bridge the gap between the new NIL that has been inserted in the NCAA now. So we will be proposing a new NIL blueprint for the NCAA. So in our overview here, we will be going over our introductions first, then the NCAA and the NIL landscape, our proposal, and our conclusion. So here, I am Daphne Lavasas, and I serve as the General Counsel and Chief Financial Officer.
I'm Parth Chaturvedi, and I'm the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer.
And I'm Christian Kai, the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Perfect. So now we're going to get into the NCAA and the NIL landscape. So nearly 500,000 college athletes make up nearly 20,000 teams. About 58,000 participants compete each year in the NCAA's 90 championships, 24 sports across 3 different divisions. So we have a lot of people involved in this. A lot of youth is working within the NCAA. So here I have the ranks, just to put it into perspective, that the college athletes, the student athletes, are really the center of the NCAA, no matter what part you go to. Even if we're talking about college presidents, coaches, compliance officers, the student athletes are really the heart of the organization. So this is what we wanted to emphasize here. Here, this is a good slide to show the division distributions. And here it's clearer when you look at Division 1 for the blue dots, Division 2, the yellow, and then Division 3, the green, just to put it into perspective, how the divisions are around the US. So now we're going to talk about the new emergent economy that we have. It is the new creator economy, which is gaining more and more traction every day. And college sports definitely plays a big role in this. And now when we go into NIL, name, image, and likeness, finally athletes are able to profit from their personal brand, whether it's through endorsements, sponsorships, social media deals, autographs, and appearances. And now in this new NIL era, which started in 2021, which is reshaping college sports, athletes are now not only students, athletes at the school, but they're also their own business. So they have become entrepreneurs and influencers as well, representing their community and their university. So this has created inherently a need for more legal, financial, and branding support and advice. So the main question we tackle here is, how can we protect the student athletes and help them make better informed decisions in this new creator era in college athletics? So our solution is to have a dedicated advisory group, which will help with guiding them more. We will have experts in law, accounting, and financial advising. So ideally, one accountant, one attorney, and one financial advisor. It will be first come, first serve, and there will be introductions to all teams at the beginning of every academic year. So we're going to get into the notable court cases now that shaped our road to getting here. So the first one I'm talking about is NCAA v. Board of Regents of the University of Oklahoma. You see this is a little older, it's from 1984. So basically here, the NCAA limited TV broadcasts, and Oklahoma and Georgia, they sued over these lost media rights. The key issue was, did the NCAA's TV plan really violate the antitrust laws? So the ruling said that it did, and that's because under the Sherman Act, Section 1, the NCAA's control was anti-competitive. So what was the impact on NIL? This decision here, even though a lot older, is set a precedent for the challenge the NCAA's control over the financial and commercial aspects of college sports, which laid the groundwork for later cases that we will go into now. So here, O'Bannon v. NCAA, this is more recent, 2015. So in this case, a former UCLA basketball player, Ed O'Bannon, he sued the NCAA for using his NIL, name, image, and likeness, in video games without compensation. So here, the issue was the NCAA's ban on paying student athletes for NIL, did it violate the antitrust laws? So the ruling was that it did, and they were found unreasonably to be restraining trade under the Sherman Act. So the impact, again, on NIL is that it marked a major legal win for the athletes, set another precedent that's more recent, and it limited the NIL-related compensation and weakening in the NCAA's control over the amateurism. So here again, it marked the beginning of more serious legal challenges to the NCAA and restrictions on the athlete compensation. So in the next groundbreaking slide here, we have the NCAA v. Alston case in 2021, which is the one that everyone's talking about when everything really changed. So here the fact is that a group of college athletes challenged the NCAA rules that limited the education-related compensation. So for example, when you get laptops, scholarships, or grad school tuition, the key issue here was, does the NCAA limit on education-related benefits violate the antitrust laws? Here we see again antitrust laws. So the ruling was that yes, indeed it does, and the Supreme Court unanimously held that the limits were, again, anti-competitive under the Sherman Act, Section 1. So the impact on NIL was this further eroded the NCAA's amateurism defense, and it reinforced the legal momentum that had happened and proceeded before with an example is the two other cases I talked about in athlete compensation and including NIL rights. And here is the hot topic, House v. NCAA 2024. This is an ongoing case. So here, again, a group of former athletes sued the NCAA seeking damages for lost NIL opportunities before the 2021 NIL rule change, which was our previous case, the Alston case. And they argued again that it violated antitrust laws. So the issue is, should the NCAA compensate athletes for past restrictions on NIL earnings? So as I said, the ruling is ongoing. However, it is said that the settlement is about suggesting that the NCAA could pay billions to pay back in damages. It's pending approval, but it is supposed to be agreed to pay 2.7 billion in damages to allow schools to share revenue directly with the athletes, which will be another big change for NIL soon. Revenue sharing with them, between the university and the athlete. So the impact on NIL, again, a big precedent and for retroactive NIL compensation. So next, as we saw, there was a lot of antitrust laws violations. So it's important to talk about the specific law. So we talked about the Sherman Act, Antitrust Act, which here we're talking specifically each time about Section 1, which prohibits contracts, combinations, or conspiracies that unreasonably restrain trade or competition. So here in the House v. NCAA case, the plaintiffs argued that the NCAA and its member schools collectively agreed to limit athlete compensation, which constitutes a horizontal restraint of trade, which violates the Sherman Act. So why does this matter? Because the courts applied rule of reason analysis, which determined that the NCAA's restrictions did not have legitimate reasons to not be enacting NIL. So in both the most recent groundbreaking cases, the Alston and the House cases, the courts found that the NCAA's justifications were not strong enough. So here, this is a brief overview here of the NCAA membership for context, as I'm going to go into the financials. So the total institutions, 1,098. There are the 3 divisions, the amount of schools in each division, conference breakdown, all the numerics. So here, we have the consolidated statement of activities, and we are focusing on the first one in the revenues, the television and marketing rights fees. As you see, it is the largest revenue out of all, and the total revenue of the NCAA is $1 billion, and this part in the revenue is about 945 billion. So that is a lot. And why we're talking about this and we're targeting this is because the revenue from the television marketing rights fees will inherently with NIL increase even more. And we're looking at it also because it's their largest revenue. And we need to remember that we are in the new creator era, which is what we need to know that to consider when we are talking about NIL as a tool that can boost these revenues even more. So here, part of our solution is our financial model for how to pay the advisory team, the funding. So here, the total cost would be per institution about 255,000 annually. So times the schools, that's about 279,000 annually. Million annually. So the funding sources, as we talked about, is the largest revenue, the annual television and marketing rights fees. And the allocation that we set is 30% of this revenue. And this is the number we get, 283 million and some. And this has about 3 million in buffer costs. So why 30% of the TV revenue? Why does this make sense? So here on the side, we have a chart with the numbers to be more specific and precise. So the full funds are from the schools are the 1,098. We draw from the largest revenue, and it does leave 70% of the largest revenue source, which is 660 million approximately. So that's a substantial amount of money still. So an investment in this funding also shows a more serious but yet sustainable investment in student athlete support. So a strategic slice that empowers all without compromising the whole. So here, yeah, we have the base funding, as we talked about, 255,000 per institution. We have the surplus allocation, the buffer that may be reserved for administrative oversight, program evaluation and potential expansion, fair distribution. Here, we have in the institutional budgets, we have the different divisions, and it's known that Division I schools usually have larger athletic budgets compared to Division II and III. However, and they generate more, especially in the television rights sector. So Then in operational costs, the smaller schools may face higher relative operational costs, making the advisory team's funding even more impactful. So that's something to definitely consider. So here it is an equitable funding approach because it is a uniform allocation with supplementary support, and it's conference specific as well. You have those dynamics happening here. It's variability. There we have a variability with the conferences, the different size, revenue, resources, the autonomy of each conferences. So we allow the flexibility to supplement the base funding if they choose to enhance the advisory services. So here, part of the advisory funding project we have here, there is an ethical case for it, an ethical component. So as we mentioned, the D1 schools usually have the bigger budgets, so that means more media exposure usually. And as we already see, NIL is thriving. I mean, look at March Madness. And in the D2 and D3 athletes, they often lack scholarships and visibility. So NIL can have an extra opportunity here as it can bridge financial gaps, offer more opportunities, and really level the playing field. So equal advisory support would mean equal access to empowerment. So as we say here, the NIL shouldn't be a privilege, but it should be a pathway to equity. So the ROI of responsibility. Why is the NIL advisory investment worth it, and why it really pays off? So here we have the numerics of it, how it makes sense. We went over that previously as well. It additionally empowers student athletes with education, protection, and opportunity. And whenever we invest in education, of course, that never really goes to waste. So it's not wasted spending, it's preventative, proactive, and empowering. So if the NCAA can spend, say, $315.6 million in 23, for example, in championships and NIT tournaments, including March Madness and all other postseason events in different sports across all sports, then why can't we spend $280 million in the future of every student athlete? So here we go into the ethical implications of NIL, and I will let Parth take over.
Hello, I'm going to be talking about the ethical implications of NIL and NCAA and how they're involved in it. So starting off, let's try to understand exploitation versus empowerment. Before NIL, the NCAA and the universities profited from athletes' performances and likeliness without offering athletes a share. This raises a huge concern of exploitation. So what's the ethical issue over here? Is it morally right for institutions to earn billions where student athletes receive no compensation for their market value? Second point, unequal access and opportunities. NIL advantages screw towards athletes in high-profile sports, such as football and basketball, especially in the United States, as we know, at larger and more funded programs. So what's the ethical issue over here? How do we ensure equality for athletes in lesser-known sports or smaller schools? And who may not get the same NIL exposure? The third concern, which raises questions, is education versus commercialization. NCAA's mission is to promote and prioritize academics, but NIL introduces commercialized incentives that may shift focus towards education and less towards monetization. What's the ethical concern over here? Can student athletes maintain academic integrity and development when financial pressure influences their decision-making? There's another long-term consequence. Some athletes may compromise eligibility or reputation by signing unethical or manipulative NIL contracts. Again, the ethical issue over here is without proper oversight. Are athletes setting for short-term gain but a long-term failure? And lastly, transparency and integrity. NIL deals can blur the line between fair play and recruitment, especially for pay-to-play system, especially to unregulated and third-party collectives. Again, what's the ethical issue? How can NCAA maintain integrity and prevent corruption under the NIL model? Next slide, please. So, ethical issue and its implication and how we justify them. Amateurism must be maintained, starting off with protect and empower. What's the talking point over here? Amateurism isn't just a tradition. It protects the integrity of college sports and ensures student athletes are students first and athletes later. But NIL allows them to earn money ethically without turning college sports into professional leagues. So we are not abandoning amateurism. We are just evolving it to be more fair and more empowering. Talking about shareholders, how do we analyze them? NCAA must comply with antitrust laws, maintaining integrity and protecting long-term sustainability. Universities need to be clear and concise in their NIL guidance to avoid legal issues and prevent athletical compulsiveness. Student athletes deserve fair compensation while still focusing on academics and sports. NIL error introduces commercialization opportunities, but also ethical risk, making oversights more crucial. How is this going to benefit everyone? Student athletes are going to be fairly compensated, and education or financial literacy. NCAA avoids future lawsuits by becoming more proactive and more ethical. Schools can still attract talent now with transparency and equality. Smaller schools get access to revenue sharing models and broader viability to NCAA and NIL platforms. So equality for small sports and schools. The talking point about this is very important as well. NIL today favors big programs and big athletes, especially in the male section, as I spoke about earlier. So we propose a model ensuring equal opportunities to centralized deal education platforms and a transparent revenue sharing system, leveling the playground for everyone. Why this solution is ethical, you may ask. It's ethical because it respects athlete autonomy, prevents exploitation, and promotes fairness without compromising academic or development goals. It balances freedom with responsibility. Why this team of experts is good for everyone, why it's going to benefit everyone. Our team brings diverse perspective, law, business ethics, sports management, which helps us build a solution that is fair, compliant, and feasible to everyone again. We have decided that this will keep up with the shareholders in mind and not just one group. Everyone has to be in mind. What's the link between ethical concerns and our solution? When we address ethical concerns like unfair contracts, inequality, and lack of oversights, a national NIA contract can be reviewed on a daily basis or a monthly basis. A shared revenue model, mandatory financial literacy education. These direction reduces the risk while preserving fairness and opportunities. Why it's a win-win? Athletes gain income and skills. NCAA avoids legal trouble and reaffirms its leadership. Universities can stay competitive without recruiting violations, which happens a lot in the recent years. The public sees a more ethical, modern NCAA. So why this team and the team plan is better for all of us? Because it's not only about replacing the NCAA model, it's about improving it and showing it to the modern era, how we can take it one step further. We bring ethical, legal awareness and inclusivity of system that desperately needs it. This proposal makes NIL a tool for empowerment and not exploitation.
There you go.
Okay. So to wrap things up, our proposal does not just acknowledge the progress that has been made. It builds on it with a solution that is more legally, ethically, and financially sustainable overall for the NCAA. At the heart of this initiative is a team of professionals, including legal, financial, and accounting experts, all committed to ensuring responsible implementation and long-term adaptability. This approach benefits everyone involved, especially student athletes, by expanding their opportunities while protecting their well-being. So it makes sense because it finds the balance between fairness and growth, and it is sustainable because it's grounded in collaboration, ethical practices, and long-term economic potential. And we also align this initiative with the global development priorities, the Sustainable Development Goal 3, ensuring health and well-being for all, and the Sustainable Development Goal 8, promoting inclusive economic growth and decent work. And NIL isn't just a trend, it's a powerful opportunity for NCAA to promote its athletes, strengthening its brand and amplify its impact in both sports and education. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity to shape the future of college athletics in a way that's fair, forward-thinking, and built to last. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so I appreciate the presentation. And so now the judges we'll ask some questions. I'm going to launch us off and really focus on more of the ethical framework in terms of what you guys are recommending. So, you know, I get the NIL, and I get that. So I think I'm going to focus a little bit on, and then it might emerge. Sometimes I need a little bit of time to formulate my question, but I'm just thinking about your particular model. So in terms of the expert advisory group that you guys are recommending, who's what you're formulated, you know, in terms of NCAA. So are you in partnership? I'm trying to understand that component of ethical piece. Like, are you in partnership and advising the NCAA in terms of how to address? I'm just trying to put it in my own words in terms of your existence, right? Like, to address the NIL issues that are coming up and the legal issues that are coming up, and trying to essentially be that team, that advisory team for institutions as well, or is it just primarily for the NCAA?
So if I understood the question correctly, it's what is our role in
Yes.
the solution we're proposing to the
Yes.
NCAA?
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
relationship with the NCAA? Okay. I
Yes.
can that. So we're consulting the NCAA, so we are not the expert group that we're not
Okay.
your solution, but as consultants, let's say the NCAA came to us and
Mm-hmm.
they said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like we're in this new NIL era.
Mm-hmm.
It's still shaping because it's relatively new, and honestly, a lot of athletes with their actions are kind of shaping what's going on and how it's going on in precedent without even knowing it sometimes, because
Mm-hmm.
the regulations are still developing. And for example, when NIL just came out, it was more so, okay, you guys don't know how to swim, we're just gonna throw you in the ocean. There's NIL, figure it out. Like as a university, let's say, or as the NCAA, we can't like advise you on, you can talk to this person to be your, let's say, I don't know, your attorney to get endorsement deals or whatever else you would do in NIL concerning. So now as the years are going by and we see more things happening and we hear of more athletes really utilizing their NIL in a good way, we see that there needs to be more guidance. So this is what we're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
As the years go by, it's true that now the universities are able to, each year that passes, have a little bit more of a say. Like, for example, now if an athlete has a contract, the athlete is allowed to show it to compliance and say, hey, like, is this okay? Will this compromise my eligibility? Before it was kind of like, we can't touch this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we, DJP Consulting, are consulting the NCAA on how to handle NIL, especially in this rapidly developing creator era. This is what's going on.
Right. Right.
I hope that answered your
No,
question.
that answers my questions. I think, well, I'll let the judges ask their questions and then I might revisit because, well, anyway, I'll okay, Lena or Chris, I'm processing still, as you can see. I'm sorry, I'm not a sports person, but I get it. I get what's happening. So please, guys, ask your questions, and then maybe I'll formulate mine a little bit better. Thank you, guys.
I'm curious what specifically we're going to, if we sign on to this, what are we going to offer athletes that they don't already have available to them? Like, what are the services that they're going to get, and how are those needs not being met currently within the framework of the NCAA and college athletics?
Okay, so what will our solution basically offer the student athletes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So what is happening now is that NIL is this, let's say, taboo thing that no one really wants to touch because you don't know how to handle it. Let's say if you were, let's say we put ourselves in the shoes of a student athlete currently experiencing all this. There is no specific guidance, there's no blueprint because it's new on how to do this and how to handle this. It's like let's say you're an athlete, not only now you have to be superstar athlete, amazing in class, now all of a sudden you're a business. So you need to figure out how to handle that. And that's not only for yourself and representing yourself in your sports, it's also representing the university. So anything you do in social media and so forth, and the creator era we're in right now really reflects not only yourself and your family as the athlete, but also your university, your community, the NCAA, its brand. So what is happening is that there is a lack of more specified expert guidance, and this is what we're offering. This is not being offered currently, officially, let's say.
Okay. So am I required to use this if I'm a college athlete? Or what if I'm you know, Cooper Flagg from Duke, and I got a team of you know, agents, sponsorship people, you know, do I have to go through this, or can I continue to have my CAA agent and my, you know, my in social media influencer company that's just did me a, you know, $100,000 deal with Under Armour? Or do I have to now go through this NCAA sanctioned system?
So I wouldn't really use NCAA sanctioned system. It's more so, of course, each person can do whatever they want. They can now, like, let's say you're an athlete, you can go out and find your own agent, your own attorney, and that's how it is. Maybe you need to declare, you know, your contract and that you have this relationship with this person, this professional relationship. However, if, you know, there's something in the contract that's not in compliance with the NCAA, I'll give you an example. A big problem in the NCAA is betting. So let's say if you're betting on NCAA sponsored sports, you're automatically ineligible. You cannot compete in the NCAA, you're sanctioned. So for example, this is where the university, let's say, would look at the contract, let's say, and that they have with the attorney or their agent that they found, and it says, oh, they can be sponsored by, I don't know, betting companies or whatever. That's a red flag. So there is where, for example, the university would say, you know, this maybe should be written differently in the contract because you're not allowed to do this, and you need to be aware that you cannot do this. Now, the athlete can do whatever they want, you know, but if they violate their eligibility, they violate their eligibility, so they can't compete. Does this answer it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, speaking as the NCAA, I would tell you most of our member schools do have those compliance departments, and they are very in touch with our athletes about you know, how to remain NCAA compliant currently. You know, there isn't that, and you know, the NIL is, you know, about being fairly compensated for your participation in this and what you bring to it. So lots of our athletes are already highly compensated, and that's sort of determined by the marketplace on how valuable they are. So I'm trying to get about what we're actually doing for the athletes.
Okay, so yes, each university does have a compliance department. That's correct. And the compliance department would be the people maybe like checking on deals and contracts and things like that. However, they work for the university. They're not going to work for a specific athlete to be like an agent, if that makes sense. So here, like, they help the athletes, of course, understand certain things and their rights and what is allowed by the NCAA and what is not, but that's where the role is limited, which is why we need a team of experts to do only that, work with the athletes on their value, their NIL, and work on their personal brand, really. And you said another point. The first point was about, you know, we already have a compliance department, or each university has one. Like, why do we need more? So that was the first point, and you brought up a second one. I forget what it was. I had an answer for it. Sorry.
Me too. Maybe I'll remember it in a minute.
I know this
We'll
is a
both
very
promise to be better.
yes, yes. So yeah, so yes, there is a compliance office. Oh, you said, this is what you said. You said, let's say I already have an athlete who's already like highly valued, they have their own team, like, do they need to go through the university team too? Like,
Is it
what's the
mandatory?
process? Yeah, is it mandatory? Okay, I see, I understand. So the answer to that is that no, it is not mandatory. However, why this team is important, and it's being funded by the NCAA, so it's in the NCAA's interest and it's athletes' interest because they're the core of the organization, is that yes, as of now, you can go find your own agent by yourself. However, there are a lot of dangers that come with that, as you can imagine, and it makes it riskier. And when student athletes just don't know, they don't know, so they could be in bad deals, bad contracts, or someone who has a very valuable contract might get a bad deal, and then you don't know what happened. So again, the advisory group would protect more, work for the student athletes. It's not, because the other thing that we do have at universities is collectives, but the collectives, it's the donor's money. So then they don't really work for the university or the NCAA, but it's the donor. So do they really care about the athletes? We don't know, it depends. Then if you work for the university, for example, compliance department, that's more like rules of NCAA comply, you're eligible, you can do this, you can't do that. It's not really like I'm helping you build your brand. And then if you work for the university, you want to make sure that you're good with the university, and that's it. Your personal brand, okay, we care about your brand with The rest is like, tomato, tomato. So the difference between all these components would be, do you need this dedicated advisory group necessarily? Do you have to be with them? No, you don't have to, but we want to ensure that we offer you the opportunity to have fair and safe opportunities with NIL. That's the difference. I think now it might be a little bit more clear for you. If it's not, please let me know and I'll clarify myself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So my question is on the 30%. The almost $1 billion of TV and media revenue generated, 30% of that number is going to generate that $225,000 to each university in D1, 2, and 3. So the D1 schools, particularly the Power 5 conferences, as you know, like I put myself in the role of an NCAA commissioner. How are we? What's your advice to us to deal with the Power 5 that that largely that $1 billion is being generated by those schools that get the national attention, the national networks as well as cable. Why? What's your advice to us to bring them along and sign on to this when they're not going to get what they might say is their fair share?
So what you're saying is, why would, let's say, financial advisors and the Power 5 or financial commissioners, why would we want to equal share with smaller schools that don't generate as much, and they should, like, everyone should get what they generate? Is that what you're like? Why
Yeah.
would you do that as
Right.
someone in the Power 5?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
well,
under this,
yes.
Duke, who's, perennial powerhouse in college basketball, is going to receive just as much as, a small liberal arts school who has a lacrosse program in, a much smaller revenue generating program in there.
This was the plus 30%.
Yeah, maybe let me rephrase it. What is the benefit to the larger schools that every university is going to be able to have the same kind of advisory team, because we're all universities are getting the same sum of money?
So, oh, I'm not muted. Okay. So I was trying to find the slide, but I don't think I wanted the ethical component with the financials. It's not here. It was equitable funding. There we go. Ethical case for NIL. For me, equal access to empowerment. Yes. Okay. So the way I would answer this is, first of all, a question to a question. Why are the other schools smaller than the bigger schools? Often it's the funds because they don't have enough money to, like, for scholarships, for example, things like that. And then let's say the athletes don't perform as well because they don't have the same resources. So what we're trying to do, an ethical element to the advisory funding and how we're, so small question. When you were asking about this, you were saying, why should everyone have the same, like, funding allocation? Because it's important to remember, we're not allocating funds to give funds to the schools. We're allocating the expertise. You see what I mean? So are we talking about the expertise, or why are we paying the expertise the same?
No, why shouldn't, if a smaller school, to use Chris's example, a liberal arts school that has one NCAA sport,
Yeah.
is going to have the same caliber of experts as Duke. And Duke has, the full slate of college sports. So more athletes that need advice.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. So I would say we need to have equal access to empowerment. So maybe this could go back in the cushioning, because we do have a 3 million cushioning here. Where is it? No. It was here. 280, blah, 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 leaves, shows
We
the
just
series.
passed it.
Did I pass it
yeah.
ahead? Here? Oh, before?
One more.
This one.
There we.
I mean,
yeah.
should funding be allocated by the number of athletes rather than just straight across schools? You know, a school that has 1,000 athletes versus a school that has 25 athletes in this scenario are all receiving the exact same amount. Is
Oh,
that?
I would. Sorry, you can finish. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, is that equitable? Or should, you know, a University of Michigan who participates in, 40 sports across the men's and women's arena, again, get the same amount of money as, a small liberal arts school that has 2 Division III programs that are unlikely to produce a lot of NIL money anyway.
Yes. So remember, now with the House case, which is currently going on, another development that is happening real time is they have team cuts. So a lot of people are getting cut. So the amount of athletes is really variable and changing in all schools, not like smaller or bigger schools. And this is happening in all schools. So, but I see your point about saying, like, why should we give the same amount of money if it's like less athletes? So I would say the remainder we like allocated depending on also who wants it, but we do want to provide the opportunity at every school regardless. Does that make sense?
It does, but there's this, I mean, the basis for NIL is, name, image and likeness, and inherently, just as in sports, inherently, some are more valuable than others, right? Like
Yeah.
sports is about picking winners and losers. And again, are we bleeding into that whole participation trophy mentality, versus allowing, winners and losers to be like creating a level playing field, right? I mean, that's why we look at something like Title IX, what it did such a beautiful job. I mean, all you have to do is look at our last Olympics to see how successful Title IX has been for women's sports, correct? And what it did is it leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
But this is related but different than that, because NIL is inherently some athletes are going to have a higher value to schools, to advertisers, to sponsors than other athletes. A Division III water polo player, in New York, at a small school is inherently different than Cooper Flagg at Duke, who's just played in the Final Four and is probably the most marketable college basketball player out there.
So remember, the new creator era. As arbitrary as this will sound, NIL is about how many eyeballs you got on you. Now, obviously, the ideal and that what we imagine is superstar athlete and very marketable, very likable, like great image. The ideal bomb, like amazing thing is that you're really good at in creating content, social media, your branding, but also very talented athlete. So it comes from talent in athletics. But there are so many cases where people may not be the best athletes, but because they are so talented in how they market themselves, they could actually be more successful. That is also something to take into account when you think about what the world is like today and how it's evolving. We also picked this NIL and the NCAA currently because this is really a hot topic right now, and there are so many changes happening right now. So even if, let's say now Duke, for example, we were talking about Duke, has, I'm going to say a random number, 10,000 athletes. Now there could be a lot of cuts in the teams, and where are these athletes going to go? They're probably going to transfer, go to smaller schools. So like maybe then the numbers are definitely going to change in all the schools. And will they be more, and NIL can help build more resources for the athletes, but maybe it could also help with resources like building resources or within the school, make it bigger, do different things. So that's what I'm saying. NIL has a great power to do many, many things, which is why we need the guidance to do it the right and the safest way, because it has an immense power, and it's about eyeballs. It's not about really your sport talent, even though being talented in your sport obviously helps.
Lynn, did you have one more comment or question?
Well, I do have some comments, but my question was, if you could briefly explain why distribute the money to the institutions instead of taking that 30% and having these experts that are available to all athletes in all three divisions around the country and manage it centrally. Why decentralize the experts to the institution?
I mean, you think you wouldn't want your athletes to be meeting with the experts?
No. They would meet with the experts, but the funding of the experts would be centralized rather than distributed to each university.
Well, even if it's centralized, we come back to the same amount of money, no?
Yeah, no, yes, but I'm just asking, did you consider that as an option?
But as the NCAA, do we want to really give that up? I mean, do we want to give that up to the individual schools, or do we want to keep that under our umbrella?
I would say, I see what you're saying, and it is a good point, but I would say that you will generate better results by having things done in person, ideally, or having them on the base of where they are, because it's different talking about, I don't know, Wisconsin when you don't live there. You don't know what the market is like over there because you don't live there. You can do all the research you want. I mean, online, you can see like, what's the population like? Do you have older people, younger people? Where do they hang out? Like, where can you have local NIL opportunities or whatnot? Sometimes you just have to know people and you need to be on the spot. And there is a great benefit on being physically there. So even though I do see what you're saying, I would say it's better to have them in person at each institution, because at the end of the day, the cost difference, there is no cost difference. So you might as well have them there. It would be more beneficial, I would say. But that is a very good point.
Great. So in essence of time, I'd like to have just the judges, well, including myself, just have comments for you guys. We're going to take our judging hats off as part of the NCAA and so forth. And so any comments from our judges, perhaps I'll start with Lynn this time. comments for the team in terms of presentation and anything?
Yeah, sure. I thought that the 2 slides on the ethical implications were fantastic. I didn't disclose it before, but the reason I picked this team to be a judge is because I was on the LMU NIL committee and was involved in fundraising for our collective. And it's as a sports fan, it's been extremely frustrating that the dominance of the SEC and the ACC and the movement of all the teams. And so the part that appealed to me was all of the ethical reasons behind your solution. And I thought that was very well thought out and was very intrigued by it.
Mhm.
And good answer to my last question.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Chris.
My advice to you guys would be if you're pitching this to the NCAA, run everything through the filter of what's in it for me if I'm the
Yep.
NCAA. Why do I care? What is in it for me? You know, and look, the NCAA it's a very flawed organization. I think we can all admit that. And I think they would even tell you inside you know, and it's one that's undergoing a lot of change. So what's in it for me is I'm going to be protected. I think, you know, this is something that's going to provide me legal shelter. It's going to provide me part of my mission. How does this fit into my mission as the NCAA? You know, how does it scratch my needs that I have right now? You know, and in this ever-changing world, like, you know, I look proactive. I look like I'm taking this head on. I look like I am in it for the best interest of both my athletes and my schools who are my partners. And so I think coming at the whole thing from, you know, focusing it more on that angle is going to perk their ears up more. Like, oh my God, I'm vulnerable if I don't do this, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris as well. I think that's where I was a little bit crazy, like, okay, what is really in it for me as NCAA? As complex as it is with all of the things that's going on, you know, I think there's something to be said about the student athletes, as you were saying, because that's how you framed your question, and I got kind of stuck on that. And I'm like, oh, is it really serving the athletes? Is it serving us, or is it serving the institution? And I get that when you're coming up with an ethical solution to a really big problem that's emerging. I don't know if it's a problem or it's fixing itself. I'm not really sure, right? Because, you know, the athletes can take it upon themselves to do what they feel is right for them if they are empowered to. Yes, I agree with that. But then also in terms of the institution, you know, it's wonderful to hear that Lynn was a part of that team too. It's like, what do we do? And what are, because when you're talking about those budgetary numbers, totally heard Chris, and I'm like, yes, thank you for asking that question. Because for smaller schools, that's huge, you know, and so that's a big burden that we would undertake when our priorities are elsewhere. And athletics, while yes, a priority, you know, academic success, individual, student, all of that maybe take high priority for institutions as you're considering, you know, just as you consider the bigger solution, the impacts on the many, you know, players, so to speak, and in this case is important. And again, as NCAA, like, yeah, what's in it for us? Because we have our interests as well that we need to care for. So, but otherwise, I thought it was great that you guys are tackling this really big issue that I think a lot of us in higher ed are thinking about, because when this whole thing came out, I'm like, wait, I thought amateur was just different. But, you know, it's emerging where it'll probably be different, but look very, very much not like what it is today. So we'll see. But any other last words from our judges, thoughts?
The hearing on the house settlement started 3 hours before you started. Started at so it's supposed to go at the latest till 8 o'clock tonight. So at the judge, hopefully it will get done today and the settlement will be approved. And then the next phase of life in the NCAA and college sports will move into the next phase.
Wow. Wow.
Which will probably be just as murky as the last phase. Unfortunately, right?
Oh, man.
It's a hard question. You guys tackled a big subject. I would say
Yeah.
congratulations on that. There's no as with these ethical questions, there's no right or wrong answers. There's no, it's just lots of different shades of gray and hard and so many different constituencies that you have to serve.
Yes.
And so I think you guys really did a great job with that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, I think we're on time, and good job on, really sticking to the timing of the presentation. I love our questions. I feel like I've learned more here than I had in the last month. So especially in sports with March Madness, kind of the behind the scenes of all of that. So thank you all very, very much.